to you.
Okay, welcome everyone for this 18th The Bridge meeting. Okay, I am very happy to be here with you today. And first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is André. I am speaking from a city called São José dos Campos in São Paulo, Brazil. Okay, I'm an electrical engineer. I research conscientiology since 2010. I'm a volunteer since 2005. I began volunteering for the IIPC. Currently, I'm volunteering at ISIC, and for the English language, Thesaurus of Conscientiological Terminology, the EUTECT, at UNICIN. Okay. For today, we'll have a 30 minutes presentation, and after that, we'll have a 50 minutes debate, and then the lecturer will conduct basic mobilization of energies during 10 minutes, okay? So the lecturer today will be Alexandre Balthazar. Alexandre has been a volunteer of conscientiology since January 93 and professor since 94. He's currently a volunteer member of the Collegiate of Conscientiology and volunteer of Asinvexis. He's also one of the founders of the CIAC and RAC, where he acted in the installation of these campuses. He also participated in the installation of the Discernimentum Holo, right? And currently, Asinvexis campus. The topic today will be Extraphysical Reurbanization in Practice, Conscientiocentric Campus Installation. So this meeting is being recorded, so I will ask you all to keep the microphone on mute until the right time to make questions, okay? And I think that's all. Please, Alexandre, can we start? It's up to you.
Hello, people. I would like, first of all, to thank Isaac and Paulo Freire that did the invitation for me. It's a big pleasure to talk about extraphysical urbanization. It is my research theme, and I hope that we can do a good interaction about the sociology, urbanization, and another ideas that we are going to talk today. Okay? Let's start. Just a minute, please. Okay. And so my approach of extraphysical urbanization has the basis in my life experience in conscientiology that is based in installation of conscientiocentric campus. Since 1995, when I came to Foz do Iguaçu and started to build the CIAC, Center for Higher Studies of Consciousness. And so we have some goals today, that is demystifying the Reurbex study, okay, correlation campus installation, Penta, and Reurbex, okay. The content that we will work together is basis of Parareurbanology. I will introduce some definitions, Reurbex indicators, the role of advanced grouping. We will talk about the importance of groupality, the role of Penta, and the role of a conscientiocentric campus. First of all, principle of this belief. It's important in always our activities. Remember, do not believe in anything you read or hear on this conference. Experiment, have your own experiences. Okay. Well, have you think about why another campus? For what? We are trying to re-internationalize the conscientiology. And so it's very usual today, some groups in Europe, United States, talking about to start another campus. Let's talk about this, okay? Should campuses have a conscientiology specialty or be an embassy of several conscientiocentric institutions? It's different. For example, when we have the first campus, CAEC, the specialty that time was parapercepciology. For example, the OIC, Conscientiocentric International Organization, has the specialty of conscientioterapy. But for example, a new campus in Europe or United States or another country, Australia, what would be more interesting? An embassy or one campus with one specialty? This is questions to think now and do the syntony of the ideas that we will work today, okay? Well, intraphysical reurbanization. What is intraphysical reurbanization? It is the act, process, or effect of urbanizing again or redeveloping, expanding or reorganizing urban, and rural areas. Urban is a word in Portuguese, I don't know if that is this word in English, that do the mix of rural and urban. For example, CAEC in Foz was built in a rural area, but today it's not more a rural area. It's a rural and urban area at the same time. So we use this word in Portuguese is urbano and English urban, improving the conditions of human life. And my experiences in conscientiology come from 4 experiences. First, in CAEC campus, that today we have in Florianópolis Foz for 5 years. After I went to Espírito Santo, it's another state in Brazil, and I lived there and I helped to install the Aracê campus for 7 years. After I called, Dr. Vieira called me to come back to Foz and to help the Cerimento campus installation. For 5 years, I lived there. And now I'm living and helping to install the new campus of Asinvexis, or Invexology campus, here in Florianópolis Foz. Well, extraphysical reurbanization, Reurbex. Reurbex is the best change of environments and extraphysical communities, anti-cosmoetical degraded, sponsored by the Serenissimos, with the purpose of sanitizing the intraphysical holocausting of the areas of the intraphysical societies on which they exert anti-evolutionary and deleterious influence for the humanity. And so this kind of extraphysical communities exerts influence in the intraphysical. And so the objective of Reurbex is to clean the paratropospheric dimension and to cut down this kind of influence in the intraphysical dimension. The purpose of conscientiology is the transformation of the planet, our planet, from hospital school to one school hospital. It have a big difference. Today, our planet is one hospital and a field part of school. The urbanization, that is the goal, the big goal of the conscientiology, is to do this transformation. And we will start in school, more school than hospital, okay? And second, Dr. Vieira, Reurbex is the beginning, the middle, and the end of everything we do here. And so, each one of us that is a student of conscientiology, it's important to think that you are starting to study reurbanization or extraphysical reurbanization, because this is our goal, like a new science in this planet. The Parareurbanology, and so it's important to see the difference between Reurbex and Parareurbanology. Reurbex is the act, the process. Parareurbanology is the study of the Reurbex, okay? It's the specialty of conscientiology that studies the multidimensional redevelopment, intra and extraphysical, in this planet. The assisted maxi mechanism involved in its evolutionary effects, being a scientific subfield of assistenciology. And so the parareurbanologists are assistenciologists, Okay, we are working with that subfield of existentiology. To study the Reurbex does not mean promoting Reurbex. It's another important difference. To study Reurbex does not mean promoting Reurbex. The veteran Penta practitioners start to involve more in the Reurbex process. And so we are talking more about Penta and the connection with the extraphysical reurbanization after. Well, we have two optics to study Reurbex. And it's important because when we start to talk about Reurbex, much kind of people think that it's a pretension. It's not for me. It's very far from me to study Reurbex because I never did an interview with Ferenissimus, for example. But we have two optics to study Reurbex. The first optic, that were optic of Dr. Vieira, is in loco, that is, in the own extraphysical site, where the same is occurring under the coordination of Ferenissimus. The lucid consciousness can ascertain the Reurbex through conscious projection. And so, this is optic. You go out of the body, and you go there, where the extraphysical reurbanization is happening with the conscience that are there, okay? Baratrosphere or umbral, I don't know if in English has another word, but it is the place where extraphysical Reurbex happened, okay? The second optics is the category, for example, that I study Reurbex, is the category of investigation is through the reading of its indicators or intraphysical effects. And so, for example, when we arrived in Iguaçu Falls, here in Foz do Iguaçu, for example, here had a bad indicator of criminology. Foz do Iguaçu was the first city in Brazil in murders. Do you imagine what was Foz do Iguaçu? Okay, today Foz do Iguaçu is not more in the ranking of criminologists, okay, of crimes, and so some kind of process happened here that improve our condition, urban condition in our city here, okay, and we are, for example, in a place that we had war. The Paraguay War, for example, was terrible. The men of Paraguay was decimated. And so it's very interesting to read the indicators of our region here 20 years ago and now. And so we suppose to have the hypothesis that the conscientiology, when installed a campus AEC and after a Cognopolis Foz, we improve these indicators. Okay, it's better now than before. And so this second optic it's my way to study Parareurbanology. I'm working hard to start studying Reurbex from the first optic, to have projections in these places, in these sites where it's happening, the extraphysical reurbanization. It's very probably that all of us has experience in these places, together the helpers and working hard in extraphysical reurbanization. But to our protection, we don't remember these experiences. It's one hypothesis. Okay. It's important to do a parallel with Reurbin and Reurbex. Reurbin is an intraphysical reurbanization, and Reurbex an extraphysical reurbanization. The morphosofting of similar consexes, or that means our holosofting creates morphothosins around us, okay? And when we test, we go with this extraphysical thoughtings to one extraphysical dimension. It's important to reinforce this idea because the extraphysical dimension is a mental state of conscience. And so some people asking from where I will go after death. Think, what are you thinking now? How is your life now? What's your goals of life, for example? This is your holosofting, okay? And after that, you will go to this kind of dimension. After the biological death, we will find similar consciousness, okay? Holosophic manifestation of conscience, that intraphysical consciousness. And so the relation into Reurbin and Reurbex is this connection. Or what we think, okay, we can read about our buildings, our home. And so what kind of softings has that people, for example? Let's read the buildings, the neighborhoods, the cities, the characteristics of intraphysical places. We will have a good idea about the holosophy of that kind of people, okay? The intraphysical and extraphysical forms from objects to buildings are creations and reflections of the intraconsciential condition of the intraphysical consciousness. And so it's one kind of conscientiometry of the consciousness through the analysis of the environments. It's important to do that because when we arrive in some place, we need to do this read. What about my holosophy? What about the holosophy of this place that I'm arriving now, for example? And this difference, okay, and if we stay a lot of time in one place, this distance of you in the place starts to diminish. You start to approximate of the holosophy of the place. And remembering that the holosophy harder will take the holosophy more, the small holosophy, okay? And so it's important to understand this difference of holosophies because we need to understand how is my power to, for example, improve the places, to develop the places and where I will go, okay? Well, environment and consciousness. The environment influences consciousness and interface in the environment. It's what I'm talking now. And I brought one example from the movie That Dreams May Come. In Portuguese, Amor Além da Vida. It's a very interesting movie to understand, to study the connection of holosophy. There is one part of this movie when he arrives to rescue his wife that was a suicide wife, okay? And so he listened one suggestion before to talk with her. That was, if her reality is yours, there is no turning back. That means if you forgot what you are, you don't come back. It's very interesting. To do the rescue in the extraphysical dimension, we cannot forget our referential. We cannot forget our individuality. Because if we forget that, the whole something of the place that we are will take our mind, okay? And so we will need another person, another consciousness to rescue us, okay? After we will talk more about that when we do questions. What would be the Reurbin target environment? So it is interesting. For example, would be prisons, forts, dangles and stigmatized sites where frequent accidents occurred, stage of genocides, house of poltergeist occurrences, public places, walls and places of public executions. Is it this place, for example, target environment? In our conscientiological bibliography, these locations are considered avoidable. That means don't go these places, okay? The mega focus of Reurbex is not defined by intraphysicality. It's not us, me and you, that define, for example, where will be made the extraphysical urbanization. And so, what is the intermissivist profile to work with this reality? Let's think about that, because when we read in our bibliography that this target environment you need to evitate, okay? In the same time, extraphysical reurbanization exists to work with this kind of places. And so we need to improve our profile to start the beginning to work with that, okay? And so, for example, the profile of the Reubanizer, sense of proaxis, that intermissivist self-commitment. We need a big commitment with our existential program. Group sense, maxi proaxis, is an evolutionary group. And so I know the importance of the group, because when we start to work under pressure, I cannot feel me alone. I need to feel like, with a group. I need to work with the helpers. And so it's very important. Paradiplomacy, the importance of the other. Universalism, not sectarian, without preconception. Cosmoethical self-abnegation. Renunciation of self for all. The unbreakable will. Okay? Moral ones. Despoliation. I don't know if this is the best word to despojamento, but bump and stop, or you are ready to do what we need. Okay? Openness, flexibility, knowing to give up to the new. And so we need to be friends of new things that we are starting to know now. Energy domain, resilience, high support capacity, okay? Cosmoethical interexistential leadership, to be an agglutinator. And when we start to be a leader of conscientiology, the people will arrive to us, and we need to do the support for these people with our interexistential cosmoethics. One more, Penta practitioner, all right? And so to start to study the reurbanization, extraphysical reurbanization, to practice Penta, it's very important. To be a pacifist, a holothoping of pacifism. Cosmoethical intent, engagement, the availability of care. Is it possible for an intermissivist to become a reurbanized student without the practice of Penta? It's a question to think into our discussion after, okay? Penta, or personal energetic task, promotes the assistance to seek extraphysical consciousness of the paratropospheric dimension. Parareurbanology has a direct connection with the practice of Penta, since the basic characteristic of Penta, which is the assistance to diseased extraphysical consciousness, consequently promotes the sanitation, cleaning of the urbanization of the native paratropospheric environment of this extraphysical consciousness. Dr. Vieira, when talking about Penta for the first time, he used to say that the Penta practitioner, for example, starts to cleaning your house after your neighbor and after the neighborhood and almost the city, okay? And so we have stages of Penta that is growing during the years of the practice, okay? In daily life, the Penta practitioner does the assistance caving wherever he goes, promoting a trail cleaning, energetic or authentic, through which he travels, with the concept baits being assisted during the Penta sections, okay? And so during the day, where you go, when, all kind of places that you go, you bait some concepts, okay? And bring with you to your Penta room. And so Penta is a mini Reurbex. Penta room is the portal of connection between the physical dimension and the extra-physical dimension, the practitioner being the epicenter of this interdimensional interaction. 5 minutes? Okay, I will accelerate a few. We have 5 minutes. And so resident Penta practitioner, the installation of a campus launches with the resident Penta practitioners, okay? I will do a synthesis. When we start to work the installation of CIEC, we saw that when the Penta practitioners come to live in the place in CIEC, our works was very accelerated. okay? And so here is another synthesis, the groupality, and I bring an image of a tractor. Yes, this image that you are seeing now, okay? Positioning, penta, function helper, energy domain, unbreakable will. It's important to have this kind of power to do the campus installation. And so we bring here, to finish the presentation, one Pararreurbanological expansion gradient. Okay, is one proposal of upward gradient, divided in 6 sequential steps. Okay, the first, clarity task. For example, the places where you are now. When you have a course of conscientiology, you are in a place, for example, that uses sometimes, okay, courses of conscientiology. This is the first step, the first degree. The second is it physical base. There is still no ownership of the property. Okay. The second stage, you have a room of the group and do courses there day by day, and so you have a place. The step 3, the room is in the name of the conscientiocentric institution. The pressure and against flow, contraflux, on X room owner is eliminated. That means you don't have the owner of the room, for example, having some kind of under pressure or against flow. The owner of this room is the conscientiology. This anchorage added to the advanced grouping promoted by institution can be the basis for the expansion and depending of multidimensional works. For example, the Penta practitioners, okay, the fixed physical foundation, one says you are the owner, not subject to eviction, is ideal for the development of Penta. If you are the owner of your house, it's better for you to start the Penta, okay? This is the same relation with the room of the institution. And after, the next step is the conscientiocentric institution that has a campus. Is the helper's place, superstructure for Claritex and Reurbex. You have the environment to administrative process, resident Penta practitioners, housing, laboratories, auditorium for field courses. Imagine you have a CP1, CP2, CP3 in the campus. Parapsychic dynamics, holoteca. The Reurbex would be reaching a considerable higher level when we have a campus. The next step, cognopolis. Plurality of constitutions, diversity of specialities, consolidate matter thousands. It's housing, condominiums. Here in Foz we have 9 condominiums, hundreds of resident Penta practitioners. Do you imagine 2,000 Penta practitioners doing a system? Imagine, for example, 2,000 Penta practitioners going to the city, to the jobs, and come back to your house day by day, like tentacles. How to say tentacles in English? This kind of extension, for example. The Penta practitioner have your Penta room, and when do the task, and during the day he is in your professional place, okay? And during all the day he is based extraphysical consciousness, and so he come back to the room, he do the assistance for this extraphysical consciousness. 2,000, 3,000 of Penta practitioners. And so we need to understand the cognopolis not like a place isolated, but a place that have connection with all part of the city. Okay, we used to say that is a gigapiece of the assistential maxi mechanism. Okay, if we are a mini piece of maxi mechanism, the cognopolis is a gigapiece of maxi mechanism. And so an hypothesis, would a consolidated cognopolis be a prerequisite for a continental assistance promoted by the intermissionists? And still in the step 6, hypothesis. Oh no, the last level of this gradient, okay? Cognopolis intercontinental network. We don't arrive at in this level, okay? But on hypothesis, a formation of an intercontinental Parareurbanological network. Exchange of conscientiology specialists physically and virtually. Greater range of intra and extraphysical consciousness on the planet. What impacts can be anticipated? Could we have distinct cognopolis with distinct specialities? For example, what is the speciality of cognopolis false? Interesting to think about. When we have campus and after cognopolis in Europe, what will be the speciality? Which homeostatic, nosographic, and sustainability indicators would be taken into account for the opening of new countries? Let's think about, for example, United States. What indicators, for example, for us, for example, arrive the conclusion, is it the right time to start the process in the United States? Well, I bring the observation. Invisible colleges are independent of physical space and can connect researchers from all over the world. Okay, I'm one member of Pararreurbanology Invisible College, and we have this experience. Our meetings, we use Zoom platform too. That is members from all parts of the world. Okay, and so here is our spatial gradient, starting there in the first step with the
just as a reminder, we just have 1 minute, okay?
Okay, we are finished. And so here is the spatial gradient, okay, the first from 6, after we can talk about. What is the role of conscientiocentric campus? To be a Reurbex maxi piece. If cognopolis is a giga piece, campus is a maxi piece, okay? Shorter, few shorter. Should campuses have a specialty or be an embassy of several conscientiocentric institutions? Okay. Multidimensional, multiplier effect. For example, I got a very interesting experience. For example, when we have 4 officials working in the building of CIEC, with using the proportions, we get 36 consexes, okay? 50 direct workers, 450 extraphysical consciousness, 50 workers more, for example, 3 family members, 1,800 extraphysical consciousness, okay? Cognopolis, phenepsist university teacher. Let's suppose it's my case too, when we have other volunteers here that are teachers in the university, in the college. Well, for example, in a room with 40 daily students, you are in contact with 360 extraphysical consciousness, 2,000 weekly students, 200 weekly students. We are in contact with approximately 1,800 extraphysical consciousness. It's, for example, if we are Penta practitioner, okay, it's important to understand the connections that we do with students and people of places that we don't know. In all the region, what is the size of region that the cognopolis or the campus stay connected? What kind of size of the region? It is interesting. It is an interesting debate to do. And so that's all. And now I'm opening for questions.
So please, does anyone have any question? It's the time for debate. We have 2 questions here, Alexandre, in the chat. Does the main goal of the intraphysical reurbanization, the main location, can be in some places? Does it it is important. It is important the right place, or it could be some places where there are a lot of drug addictioners, where there are a lot of drug market. How could be reurbanization, intraphysical reurbanization in a place like that, if it's possible? Okay.
It's interesting to remember the extraphysical urbanization is promoted by Serenísimos. Okay? And so, for example, when we came to Foz do Iguaçu, we could go, for example, to Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, Curitiba, and other big places in Brazil, big cities. But the process that bring us to Foz do Iguaçu was very interesting. Was not us that defined it. A volunteer from Foz do Iguaçu donate a piece of land to us, okay? And we didn't understand why Foz that time. And after Dr. Vieira, that time, when saw the donation, at the same time he said, I will put my library in Foz do Iguaçu. And all of us was terrible, how to say, impacted with that decision and trying to understand why Foz. We have, for example, we publish a document, why Foz, with this name. And we start to try to understand why Foz. I'm talking about that because that sometimes we have some confusion. Some person saying, I will do an extraphysical urbanization in my house. Okay, extraphysical urbanization, the Conscientiocentric says in our books that is a very big process oriented and coordinated by the Serenísimos. We can do sanitation of our physical basis. Okay, and so, for example, drug addiction place here in Brazil is a big problem. Let's start an extraphysical urbanization of that. We don't have the, like to say, visão de conjunto, a group, large view, for example, to understand if we are in the right time to work with the drug addiction places. But see what interesting in the process. When we came to Foz, after we start to understand why we came from here. We have a war here. We have traffic of drugs and arms, guns here in the frontier. We have, for example, the Guarani Republic, the process of Jesuitas, how to say, we have a big missionaries, the mission. We have a movie, for example, that's called The Mission. They talk about the missionaries of Catholic process that work here in this region. And this republic falls, not Iguaçu falls break down. And so we have a lot of problems here in this place. But we didn't came trying to work direct in this process. We came to start CIEC, to install the campus of CIEC. And so, for example, today we know that we are working with this process, but like a secondary activity of us. First activity is to install, for example, Penta practitioners here in the Cognopolis. And so this sanitation, this cleaning that we are doing is naturally occurring about from consequence of our job here. I don't know if I was clear for you.
There is other question from Willie also. Who does not practice the Penta yet due to the lack of some pre-requirements? Could this person be a mini agent of reurbanization acting in his own residence and in his own neighbor where he lives? What do you think about it?
The person, the volunteer, that is not a Penta practitioner can study the urbanization, okay? I know that Willie, for example, does part of the Visible College of Parareurbanology. You can study, you can do studies about that. When we start the Penta practice, okay, you start to understand deep inside the process of urbanization. because it's with Penta, we have your own experience with the helpers during the development of your Penta, you start to involve more an extraphysical process. And so to go deep inside the study, okay, you need to improve your energy domain, for example, your helper function, and Penta help you to improve your studies.
Okay, now I have a question. According to your own experience, during the foundation of CIAC, during the foundation of other campuses, what was the impact in your daily life? For example, if there were some counterflux, how did you overcome it? And what is your recommendation based on your own experience for the people who want to get more involved in the foundation of more campuses of conscientiology beyond being a Penta practitioner, beyond studying? What is your personal recommendation according to your own experience?
My recommendation is to be a volunteer, to work with a group, okay? And para-diplomacy that we talked before, or that means the other that to work with you is important, and you need to understand the other. We need to like to say, to improve your capacity to work with different sorting of us. And so our world today have a problem that is increasing, that is the xenophobia, the process, the fascism, and another kind of political, radical politics. And we need to understand what is happening. And it's very interesting to start understand this process in the convivence, doing connection with the persons that are beside us, okay, is in front of us, that think different about us. We need to work with admiration, discordance, is it right? Disagreement is, at the same time we need to admire the person that we are disagreeing, okay? And so I say that Penta is important to understand these mechanisms of group is important. There isn't, for example, campus installation without a group. All places that I lived and I helped this process, I had hard groups of conscientiology, hard instituted force, strong groups, okay? The person that I worked during all this time was very strong. And so we need to understand how, for example, you work with the helper function, okay, that you will be strong. In the same time, we need to say softy with the person that is working with us, okay?
And was there any impact on your personal life during this process?
Repeat, please.
Did you have any impact, some counterflux?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Like that?
Yes. Yes. It's not easy. It's not easy. And so I say that CIAC, for example, it was the first campus that we installed. It was the most strong from others that I lived. And so, but this experience does me strong and maturity. We have maturity to work with the next process. It's important to understand that it's not easy. And so when we talk about profile, we need to understand that we need to develop some kind of process of your personality.
Thank you. Any other question?
I have one question.
Okay.
Yes. You mentioned that you can use the Penta method, and you also can go by, I think, good thoughts or something. I don't remember the exact phrasing. Is this a real alternative to Penta, and what exactly does it mean?
I didn't understand the question.
Did you not understand due to microphone problems, or?
No. Sorry, I'm an English student. André, could you help me?
Okay. I remember that you promoted or talked about two possible methods. 1 second, please. I have to switch this off. Two possible methods to I think clean a place or something. And the first one I remember is Penta.
Yes.
And the second one was something like good thoughts or good scenes or something. Did I get this right?
Yes. The softings, the whole softings.
How does this work with the thoughts?
Softening. Softening is one concept of conscientiology. When, for example, you think something, okay, you have a feeling about this your think, your thought, okay, and this process have energy, and so softening is a connection with three words: is your thought, your sentiment, and your energy. And so when we work with energy and you have good thought, for example, good softens, you have hollow softens, that it means that you have a kind of energy, the sentiment, connected with the kind of things you have, okay? When you go to one place, for example, when you go to supermarket, the supermarket has a hollow softening. For example, it's not recommendable the person go to the supermarket hungry, because there is a tendency that the person buy a lot of things, because the hollow softening will attract this kind of ideas. Okay, you lost your goals and starts to buy a lot of kind of things. Okay, and so when we enter in a hollow softening pathologic, for example, we need to understand what kind of hollow softening you are and what kind of hollow softening you are entering. If we understand this distance, the level where you are and the level of the place, it's possible that you can or get out, okay, or enter knowing that you will have a big job to start to clean that place. And so we need to mensurate our capacity to clean this kind of environment. I don't know if I
Yes, I understand, yes. But then I have the question of strength. If I go to a supermarket, which Holocene is renewed every day because it has a certain purpose, which is very strong, connected to money also, etc.
Yes.
And I just come in here and I have this intention to clean, I have good thoughts, and then I walk out. Does this really make a difference, except that I am in a good state?
Okay, I didn't understand that.
Okay, I think the supermarket Holocene is very strong, and my Holocene is comparably weak. And in addition, the Holocene of the supermarket will be renewed by every customer going only half consciously in, by the people who want to earn money, etc., etc. So my contribution to cleaning this place, like this, isn't it very minor?
He's speaking about a supermarket as an example, as I understood, right? Supermarket, environment, a collective environment. So you go there, and what is the impact of your own Holocene in this Holocene? If you can change it or something like that, right? Christoph, did I understand?
Yes. Let's talk about physics. Okay. For example, the Holocene has a frequency. Okay. For example, like physics, like music, there is a frequency of Holocene. Its energy has frequency. Okay. Our Holocene has frequency too. And so if my Holocene has high frequency, and I go to the ambient, the environment that has bad frequency, the tendency as the strong frequency dominate this mix of energy that one is connected to other, right? And so if we have a holosaucer very consolidated, is it right? A strong holosaucer, it's very hard for me, for example, to do interference in that holosaucer. Is it right now? I'm talking about supermarkets, for example. It's not, like to say, the problem of this holosaucer. There are others, for example, cemeteries. We can have another holosaucer, and so you will not do big transformations in that holosaucer. Sometimes our presence will bring some extra physical consciousness with us. Your assistance, you will not change much that holosaucer, but you bring work to your Penta house, okay? Penta room.
Right, Christoph?
Yes, I understand.
Any other question?
Can I just quickly add something to this discussion, maybe to clear something up, like, because the question was if you do Penta or if you don't do Penta and you go into this supermarket, church, cemetery. I think that even if you're not doing Penta and you cannot make this big change, right? What happens is that if you don't know what your holocene is, right, how you feel, what your state is, that it's very easy for you to get overwhelmed by that holocene of these places, like a church, cemetery, university, if it's a bad holocene, right?
Yes.
So if you know what your level is and suddenly you enter the building and you start feeling really bad or irritated and angry, then you know, hey, this is not me, right? This is this place where I am. It's not good for me. I need to leave.
Yes.
So it's also like, if you don't recognize that, it can be bad for yourself. If you, like, this is also like important to because I have been in places, in buildings where I did not think about, hey, this is a bad place. But suddenly I started feeling really bad and I didn't know why. And I realized this is the place, this is not me. So the other thing is that I think you can make a difference, even if it's not the reurbanization on an extraphysical scale. But for example, in the supermarket, you are in the alcohol area, right? Might be that you attract their consciousnesses who were addicted before they decimated. They might attach to you and want you to buy a bottle of beer, right, or a bottle of whiskey. So if you realize this, that, hey, I don't want beer, but something I want that beer, but I don't know why, and you start working with energies and you start realizing, hey, I don't need this beer right now. I am who I am, you know. And you exteriorize energies if you feel in control of the situation. I think you can help that consciousness. Of course, Penta is a different thing. It has more impact, but I still think that we can help with our energies. But we won't change like the whole supermarket, right?
Yeah.
But we can help. I think we can help like individual consciousnesses wherever we go.
Yes, it's possible. It's a very good example you gave when talking about the alcohol, for example. It's one part of supermarket that can have a distinct holocene, right? If you go to the another part of supermarket, there isn't that holocene from alcohol, for example. And if a person arrives this part of supermarket, okay, and starts to understand, for example, some ideas that are put to buy the whiskey, buy Opa. Not mine, this thought, okay? Just that process, Opa, it's not mine. You already did the difference in the whole sorting of supermarket. Okay, the extraphysical consciousness didn't get to change your profile. Okay, your posture that time, and so if you do that, you are helping the whole sort. When we talk about Penta, is the level of this interference, the positive interference in the places where you go. But remember again, if you bait extraphysical consciousness with you, you are not a Penta practitioner, for example. But if you bait extraphysical consciousness and exteriorize good energies for that, at the same time, you are helping. The places were better than when you arrived. Okay? And so it's important. Is it my goal, for example, to practice Penta? 5 years, 10 years, 2 months? How much time I need to, for example, improve my assistance with this kind of technique, okay?
So there are more questions here. Is a comment. They were saying that it's in the case of holothalsin, it's a question. It's a matter of energy dominance, and not a consolidated holothalsin. Who has more energy? Who has more energy dominate? Who has not more energy? It's just a comment here. And so please, does anyone have any more questions?
I didn't talk about the vibrational state, but vibrational state is one good level when the student of Conscientiology arrived to do difference in places, and to preserve your psychosphere, okay? Install the vibrational state. And so that Melanie talked about, oops, it's not mine. Who don't mind the vibrational states? It's usual to perceive, for example, when has an intruder trying to put an idea in your head. You know?
Yeah, and if you dominate the energies, you can, as you were saying, perceive more energies. And the reurbanization in São Paulo, for example, they have one example there, the Carandiru. It was a complex of prisons, had a lot of bad energy, very heavy. And now if you go there, you pass through it, it has a school. It's another holothalsin. You can feel the energies are different.
Yes, yes.
So it's a matter of dominating our own energies and and your sensitivity to that. It's part of our parapsychological development, right? Our psychic development.
Alexandre, hi, Regina here. I would like to ask you to talk a bit about more of volunteerism, or the role of volunteering and the groupality, because I think that might be a very important point, and I would like to hear a bit more about your experience. How could a group really prepare for such an installation? Because I think it needs to be more like, okay, I have an idea, let's have a campus, right? So I think you need to do more to prepare.
Okay. For me, for example, was very interesting experience in Foz when I arrived here. And so when we start a group to a very big process, like to install a campus, for example, we will work with under pressure. We will stay under pressure, okay? And so we need to understand that the intruders will try to put one contra outros, against the others. The work of the intruders is to put one against the others. And how they do that? With our think different. And so our differences, okay? And so, for example, I have this hypothesis. I don't have a head recognition, but I have a past in the religion, for example. And so I have the hypothesis that includes to live here, this region before, okay? And when we start a group, it's naturally, we attract persons similar with us. When we are talking about conscientiology, we need to understand that we have a lot of subgroups, okay? And in the past, it's possible that these subgroups, for example, didn't work together. And we now have the opportunity to clean, to resolve a bad process of the past. Okay, and so if we understand this, for most simply that would appear, I think that we are starting to construct a good work group. Okay, and so militarist, religion, politicians. We have here in Conscientiology a lot of subgroups, and interesting, very interesting. We have now institutions with some speciality. And so we are studying the internationalization of Conscientiology, and our hypothesis is that we need to improve the specialties and not so much the institution. The institution is in the second plane to help to improve the specialty. And so, for example, I study Parareurbanology, but I am a volunteer of Asylexis, and I'm one member of the collegiate, okay? But my specialty is to study urbanization. Since two decades that I'm studying urbanization. For example, what is the specialty of you? Melanie, Christopher, Edith, I'm saying Sergio, what is the specialty of you? And so it's important to start to think now and to do the assumption of one specialty. Because when we are recognized from your work, your evolutive feature, how to say feature?
Personal evolutionary file.
Yes, files, yes. You are recognized for your job from this life, not the time when you were a king, for example. So you think that you will think that you be recognized because I am Alexandre. Okay. Oh, what are you doing now? What are you researching now? Where is your articles? What kind of thing you did this time for the Conscientiology? Okay, and so this specialty and the institution that improve this specialty, I think that will help. For example, Europe, the campus that will be installed in Europe, it's interesting. That has, for example, more horizontality, more democracy. And so the persons will be recognized by the trafores, strong treats, for example. I don't know if I'm answering your question, Regina, but I think that this is the principles of the groupality from our zeitgeist now, of the Conscientiology. Most horizontality possible that we get, okay? The democracy, the decisions will be to take decision with everybody. I think the maturity of the Conscientiology volunteers is in a good level, for example, to start the discussion. And so the Conscientiology collegiate will start the next month debates in tertuliario with important topics for expand the Conscientiology, for example. And we think that the big decisions need to be participated with every volunteers that could get to participate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alexandre, question regarding a very recent example of building a cognopolis that Gustavo and his team from Florianopolis, they have just founded their institution, right, for the cognopolis in Florianopolis. Could you maybe talk a little bit about this process?
Sobre o processo de instalação Florianópolis. Where they had the goal there to install an embassy. So, for example, we have there 3 coordinators. Is Aline Bittencourt, Annelise, and Jorge Gonçalves, okay? And they had 3 distinct specialties. It's very interesting. 3 persons with 3 distinct specialties with this goal to install an embassy of conscientiology to start the Cognopolis since the beginning. CAEC, for example, was planning to be a campus, and the process was growing and growing and growing. Today we have 7 campus, okay, and 9 condominiums. We have a Cognopolis. And the question is it possible, for example, to start the Cognopolis since the beginning without, for example, the first step to be a campus? I think that it's possible. It's possible because Cognopolis, what characterizes one Cognopolis? A lot of specialties, people living there, doing Penta there, a lot of buildings, laboratories, like parapsychic dynamics. And so if you start a pilot cell, okay, with this idea, you are starting a Cognopolis. You are not starting a campus, okay? What another example, Aracê, when we installed the campus of Aracê, there is one institution with 3 specialties, okay? But it's just one institution. We don't have conscientiotherapy, we don't have conscientiometry, we don't have coexology. That are, for example, some specialties very important for the students of conscientiology. And so Aracê is trying to turn a Cognopolis. How? Attracting another institutions. And so they will bring another specialties. When Aracê, for example, has 5, 10 specialties ready to do the reception of the intermissivists, Aracê turned it to a Cognopolis, not more a campus, okay? And so Florianópolis is very interesting experience. It's the first, and we think that another Cognopolis in the world will inspire by Florianópolis. And so we need to put a lot of energy in Florianópolis, Cognopolis, Santa Catarina, because there they are starting since the beginning install Cognopolis. It's in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was very interesting because I was there last year with Gustavo, and we drove there where they were thinking or feeling that the Cognopolis would be, and it was so interesting because I was like, yeah, but it's so far in the future, you know, I didn't know what to expect. But then when we drove there, I immediately got this Cognopolis Holocene, you know, when we were driving through very specific areas without them telling me which one it was. But we drove through, and it's really interesting. And I also think it's interesting for Europe because we have so many different countries and we have different specialties. So it's interesting to think about establishing first the Cognopolis and not fighting which specialty it will be that we will start, but that we can work together with different specialties here.
Yes, I think that when we talk about embassy, we are saying that we will have one specialty. For example, Parareurbanology. Imagine that the Cognopolis, what is the matter softening of one Cognopolis? I think that is some big, okay? Parareurbanology, for example, is the goal of our evolutive group. And so when we start to install a Cognopolis, all of the specialties, I think that is involved by a matter softening of this specialty. And it's so much early to define that. They are starting the process, okay? And for example, to choose a piece of land, to understand where is the better place to start. When we had the Dr. Vieira, for example, the parapsychism of Dr. Vieira helped our evolutive group to take these decisions. And so now we think that we need to take the decision with the helpers and the democracy. And so when I say that, we have some opinions, we have some will, but it's important that the group in another level of maturity starts the decisions together, okay?
And Melanie, when you were talking about Europe, what came to my mind was the motto of the European Union, right? So unity in diversity, because we have, of course, different cultures and all of that, and different specialities, as you said. And I think that would be very important that there is a kind of structure that has the possibility to put everything under one roof or whatever, with the possibility that everyone can contribute, right?
Yeah, and I also think it's like, for me, the Florianopolis project is really interesting because we can see it, right, from the idea towards the development and what kind of challenges they face in doing so. So it's really interesting that in last year there was this, oh, we have the pre-IC, this might be the area where we want to have the Florianopolis, and I think one week ago, Alexandre, they became an IC or something. So it's really interesting to follow this
They will turn to
development.
The Conscientiocentric institution, as I know, April or May will turn to IC. Okay.
Yeah. But they were like accepted, right? There was like something that they were confirmed or something.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's really interesting from Europe, right, to observe the process, because I haven't been there when CEAIC was founded, right? I know the end result, but it's building up, right? People coming together, doing the first field courses there, this kind of things. So I think we in Europe, we should have a look at what's going on in Florianopolis, just to have like an example.
Yes, it's important to say that I did my college in architecture in Florianopolis. I lived there how much years? I was born in a city from south of Florianopolis, Criciúma. Okay, Marcelo Brivilatic he's a volunteer in Europe, live in Criciúma too. And so now I lived in Florianopolis, and after I came to Foz do Iguaçu. Okay. And there in Florianopolis, I remember now, we have an experience of groupality, very interesting. How to say gincana in English? Is there anybody here that know how to translate gincana from Portuguese to English? André, help me. Gincana is a kind of...
It's like, gincana is like a competition, right?
Yes, yes.
A small competition.
And maybe in English we saw the translator here in Google was gincana too. Okay, it's a competition promoted by, for example, in Florianopolis, TV net. Okay, a very rich group communication in Florianopolis, and a lot of tasks that groups from the city needed to complete the tasks, and the premium was a car. Okay, and the group of investors and of the IIPC that time, 1995, we was the champion of the gincana, and we got the car. We sold the car, and we brought a room for IIPC. And so today, the room of IIPC in Florianopolis was brought by students of Conscientiology. That was a group, a very interesting group, that worked together during 4 or 5 days without sleep. And so we did the revezamento, let's say, relay. When one was asleep, another was wake up. And so during the time, it's a very high experience we have. I need 1 hour to explain about the gincana, but why I'm talking about that? Because the experience I have, and I remember like it was now, the helper function that each one of us had that time. So for example, when somebody was tired, the group said, go to sleep now. Okay, somebody was with the helper function, has ideas, has energy, and he is the leader that time. But this person, 11, 15 hours after, needs to sleep. Okay, and so he went to the bed, and that was another that was sleeping, wake up and starts to be a leader, and starts to conduce the work. And so the process to has the helper function was alternating by each one of us. It's very, very interesting. And so we had a big respect by the helper function that was with one of us. And so we got the premium, we got the car, I think, because we understood how to work in group when the helpers work with everybody of us and not just one person that say what you need to do. No, sometimes it was person A, for example. Another time was person B. Another time was person C, and going on. So it's interesting because when we talk about the embassy, we will understand that each time determined institution, for example, it's possible that has the helper function to help the others. And after another institution with another specialty, we will organize an event, for example, we will have the helper function to help the others. And so this is the relate one with other during the time. I don't know if I was clear with you, but is answering the question that Regina did, for me is the groupality, high level of groupality, to understand that each one of us is leader. Each one of us has helper function. And during the process, each one of us will have more helper function than other. And it's usual that is changing from one to other. And so we need to understand that this is the better to us, okay? In Europe, for example, we will have an event, the Pons Interact in November, October, in the end of this year. And I think that will be a good opportunity to understand more about this process. Understand that we have a lot of specialists in the conscientiology. And you, for example, everybody needs to manifestate your ideas, your wills. Everybody needs to understand and to answer this question, how to re-internationalize the conscientiology in the zeitgeist, in the actual zeitgeist, okay? And so the place where we will be the next campus, for example, in Europe, we will discover together. We will discover doing discussions, analyzing cultures, process, ideas, specialities, volunteers. And so we will understand more, and I think that the places and how will be built, and we will understand together.
Okay, I think that one more minute, I think it's time enough for only one more question. And just to complement, Willie from Encyclosapiens is helping us to translate Gincana in English. Is usually translated as scavenger hunt or Gincana, okay?
Gincana, yes.
One more small question. 1 minute. This topic is quite interesting, so I think it's we have already finished the time right now. So please, Alexandre, would you please conduct our basic mobilization of energies?
Yes, let's go.
Okay.
And so, everybody, let's relax our energy. Try a good position, chair. Let's relax our muscles. Do a few movements to get just relaxed. Let's breathe. And each one in your own rhythm. Let's pull the energy to the top of our head. Let's do that, use just our will. Let's eliminate some thoughts about imagination. And let's use our will to bring our energy to the top of our head. Each one your own here too. Let's get the energy pass by our body until arrive at the tip of our feet. Let's feel the energy passing by all parts of our body until arrive to the feet. Sustain the concentration. Let's be lucid. And each one of us, with your own rhythm, try to accelerate this movement. Bring the energy to the top of our head again. Let's accelerate the movement and let's try to install the vibrational state. Each one in your own rhythm. Let's observe the thoughts, ideas that came to our mind. Eliminate imagination and put your will to install vibrational state. Let's reduce vibrational state and let's start now a sterilization of our energy. Put your will to sterilize the energies. Let's print the better softings in our energy. Let's reduce the sterilizing. Let's try to pull our energy from the environment to us. Let's feel the energy introducing our psychosphere. And let's now to evocate the extraphysical central of the energies. Let's think about that. And let's pull the energy of extraphysical central of energies. Let's registrate ideas, thoughts, let's come back slowly, doing a few movements, each one in your own rhythm. Open the eyes. All right, are you feeling okay? Somebody would like to comment?
Okay.
Everybody is good? Okay.
Okay. I would like to thank you, Alexandre Balthazar, for this great presentation, for all your time here, solving these doubts. I would like to thank you all for participating on this meeting, right? Thank you very much.
I would like to thank you. It was very interesting. It was my first experience in Isaac, the bridge, and I am disponible. I'm available when you want to talk again about these topics. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, and I would like to invite you all for the next bridge meeting. The 19th, the bridge meeting will happen on April 29th with the topic Personal Code of Cosmoethics by Christina Arakaki, right?
Oh, yes.
And I would also like to share with you all, there will be a meeting in Strasbourg called Conscientiology Interact. It will be held between November 9th to 11th. It will be an opportunity to interact with other intermissivists and to meet our evolutionary group for the ones who will be able to be there, right? And for more information, please access the site consinteract.com, right?
Okay. I have one invitation. Could I?
Okay.
The next Saturday, here in CIEC, I will defend the verbete Conscientiocentric campus. It will be in Portuguese, okay? Who wants here to improve the Portuguese? I will defend this verbete next Saturday, the last day of March, 31. Okay, you are invited.
Alexandre, do us a favor and speak clearly and slowly in the tertulia, then we can understand.
I will try, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. It was such a pleasure to be here, okay?
Right, see you later.
See you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.